So Lunga, let's start and talk about how the World Cup starts on Sunday, but the so-called bigger teams get into action later on in the week.
Sure.
And a mouth-watering clash that we're looking forward to, well, I'm looking forward to it, is New Zealand against the host Australia. But talk us through how perhaps the setup is of these games and what will determine who we face in our first game.
So, leading up to the Super 12, which is the knockout stage, then goes into the semi-finals and the finals. You've got some sort of group stage for the T20 World Cup, which is something that you typically see in an ODI, so in the 50-over format. In this year's World Cup in Australia, you've got the likes of Namibia, the likes of Sri Lanka, the likes of Ireland playing in that group stage. And they will have the opportunity then to qualify for 2 open slots alongside the Super 12 side, or to make up the Super 12 stage. It might be the last World Cup that South Africa qualifies automatically as a big side, especially if you look at the next ODI World Cup and how well we are doing in that format. All right, so you're looking at Namibia, Sri Lanka, and perhaps Ireland to be the 3 big sides that will make it out of that qualifying stage for the Super 12s, and then into the Super 12s where the big action starts. Then you'll see the Trans-Tasmania battle between New Zealand and Australia. You expect that Australia is probably going to win that because they're going into that game with a bit more form than the New Zealanders, who just had a tri-series against Bangladesh and Pakistan, and they didn't win that. Also, their scoring form is a bit low. Versus the Australians, David Warner has found some new life with the Willow. They've got the likes of Marsh, who's just been bought into that setup. They've got the likes of Stoinis doing well with the bat as well. With the bowling, they've got an impeccable lineup. So that battle seems to be a one-sided affair. Then you'll get the likes of India going up against South Africa. You'll get the likes of India going up against Pakistan. That's probably the first game to sell out at any World Cup when it goes on the cards. It's going to be a tough series of fixtures, because for South Africa they go India, then they go Pakistan, and you feel that that's where their fate will be sealed in those 2 games. Of course, it's the World Cup. It's Pakistan. They could either rock up or they
don't show up.
They don't show up at all, and that could be good for the Proteas.
Now let's talk about how a lot of people questioned the Proteas' decision to go into India and play them just less than a month before the World Cup, particularly because it was in conditions which are so different to the conditions we're going to be playing under in Australia.
Sure, I think, there's merit to the question why you'd go to India, but also I think on the other side you look at scheduling. What are the opportunities for Mark Boucher and the Proteas to secure opposition in warm-up games? And one has to assume that those opportunities went there. Also, on the other side, it could actually be a stroke of genius in that Boucher took a T20 squad, based them in India as some sort of pre-World Cup camp. They go on to play a longer format of the game, so they're getting more game time, they're getting to face more deliveries out in the middle in difficult conditions. When they get to Australia, it could literally be a breeze, a breeze in the park. And that could actually turn out to be something that is instrumental for that unit. So it's too early to cast out any judgment, but I think there's more benefits for the side than there is question marks.
And I know now you've just touched on warm-up games taking place. So the Proteas' first game in the World Cup is in about 10 days' time. But given our very disappointing performance against India now, and before this World Cup, do we actually have enough time to fix what we would like to call our 99 problems?
Well, every match that they've played in India would have been a stepping stone to the World Cup. So every encounter, every situation, every game situation would have been preparing and leading that side towards that first match that they'll be playing in 10 days' time. The only thing really that is out of their planning will be the traveling from India to Australia, but still that won't be as bad as traveling from South Africa to Australia. So the guys have had game time, they've had time out in the middle, they've had different match situations with different figures leading the side, there's rotation happening. So actually they should be in a position where they are ready to compete. And as I say, even the Australians will tell you, England will tell you, it's difficult to tour India. And so if they've toured India and it's been difficult, they get to Australia, it feels like home because it's similar conditions to our conditions. And the only difference they've had is that they've actually had the opportunity to up their game. Perhaps we could see a different result. We could see a different Proteas. I'm not saying there's room to be optimistic because results drive optimism, right? And we haven't seen that. But we have seen signs and indications that there is something within that squad. So it's too early to rule them out or to rule good performances out. But also, do yourself a favor and maybe hold back on your expectations and just let the guys play.
And I mean, Lunga, for you, your viewpoints, coming into this World Cup, given how we've been performing leading up to it, what are your major concerns in terms of the South African team? And where is it that our focus really needs to be for us? Even if we don't do great, for us at least to have a respectable World Cup performance.
I think the days of having a respectable World Cup for South African cricket are long done. We are, or at least we have been perceived as a big cricketing nation for a long time. And you know what the demand and the expectation with that title is that you should go to a tournament, compete and win it. And the reality is, of course, that we haven't done that. So if they don't come back home having featured in a final, I don't think we can go, okay, well done Proteas, you tried at least. So a final for them would be that benchmark. Of course, winning it is, the cherry on top. The biggest focus area for this side is the batting and finding the balance within the top five, fitting in individuals who are going to convert good starts. It's T20 cricket, you don't expect centuries, although you do get centuries from teams who are doing well. But you're looking for guys who are going to come in, so the opening partnership, somebody is going to attack early on, score a quick 40 or 15 deliveries. We're seeing that now. You're looking for the other opening batsman who's going to play themselves in, but still in an attacking form, convert a 40 into a 60, a 60 into an 80. Now you've got an incredible opening partnership. Then 3, 4, 5 come in and they really take away the game, stretching it in terms of the run scoring. I think our bowling department, our bowling unit has been consistent over the last 3, 4 years, and that's what's carried the Proteas brand. So really focus is really on the batters, finding balance. There's a matter of Reza Hendricks who's playing well but struggling to get into the side. There's obviously question marks around Temba Bavuma and his form. Finding that balance, and it's a matter of Boucher and his side closing ears and saying, okay, we have to put performances on, and they actually put performances and stop talking about it.
And Lunga, just as I wrap up with you, we've got less than a minute. Just that mental strength coming into this World Cup will really be key for the Proteas. They have to first overcome that battle. Well,
I think, again, this is where the stroke of genius might lie for Boucher, taking the side to India. Just to overcome that mental pressure, playing in the subcontinent, difficult conditions, more than 50,000 people in the stands for 3, 4 consecutive games. And so I think the Proteas will be in a good spot. Obviously, they're under pressure. They're used to pressure. It's South African cricket, and South Africans are demanding, and we want results out of this side. So I think, mental pressure or mental prowess is not something that they could blame at the end of the World Cup. It will all boil down to, can they score runs? Can the top 5 score runs? If not, they're coming home early.
Lunga, thank you so much for your time. As always enlightening and lovely to have you.
Pleasure.
Lunga Kupiso, their cricket analyst, talking all things the T20 Cricket World Cup. And we ask ourselves the questions, will the Proteas be able to step up and perform in this T20 World Cup? We'll have to wait and see.